Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call to order the June 12th meeting of the Oklahoma City Economic Development Trust. And the first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. They have been distributed to the trustees previous to the meeting. Are there any comments, corrections, additions to the minutes as were distributed?
So move.
A motion made to approve the minutes. Do we have a second? A motion made and second. Is there any further discussion? Please cast your votes. And the minutes are approved. Thank you very much. The second item on our agenda is the ratification of the claims, and they were attached to the packet that went out to the trustees. Are there any comments about the claims? Questions? We've got one that's I'd like to have a word or two from the staff on, and that is the payment we made to the outlet mall. It's the first sizable payment we've made under our agreement with them.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. This is our first payment, our narrow payment for our regional marketing expenses related to the outlet mall. These are for expenses through January of 2012, and I wanted to point out to you they submitted over $574,000 worth of expenses that they thought potentially were regional marketing, and of that we whittled that down to 423. But based on our contract, which is formula-based, which we pay the lesser of the sales tax that they generated, it's 12.5% of whatever sales tax they generated, and that's how we got to the $359,000 number. So that's how that process works.
Good, thank you. Good news, bad news. Bad news, we have to spend the money. Good news is we have a reason to spend it because our sales were so good. That's great, thank you. Are there any other questions about any of the claims? Chair will entertain a motion to ratify the claims.
So moved.
Have a motion made and second to ratify the claims. Are there any further questions? Please cast your votes, and the claims are ratified. Thank you very much. Next item are some items that require some individual consideration. Item A is a new industrial prospect, and I understand we're going to have a presentation.
Yes, I'd like to introduce Mike Ogan from the Greater Oklahoma City Chamber of Commerce, and he'll be introducing FMC Technologies so they can make a brief presentation.
Good afternoon. Michael Ogan with the Oklahoma City Chamber. We've been working with the company and their consultant now for a couple of months. It's a Houston-based firm that has existing operations in the city, and they're looking at expanding either here or in some of their existing operations elsewhere. And I have Brad Cord, who's the managing principal of Atlas Insight, that's helping them with their site selection work, and John Dees, who's the U.S. operations manager for their surface wellhead division.
Good afternoon. It's very exciting to be in Oklahoma City during this time.
You picked a great time to get here.
Absolutely. It's a lot of buzz in the city. Again, my name is Brian Cord, a managing partner with Atlas Insight. We're a site selection consulting firm that assisted FMC with helping them decide where it's best for them to conduct their business operations. To give you a little bit of background on FMC, if we just go to the next slide on the presentation, give you a little background on FMC. FMC is a technically advanced company that basically manufactures and services sophisticated systems and products such as subsea production and processing systems, surface wellhead systems, high-pressure fluid control equipment, measurement solutions, and marine loading systems, primarily for the oil and gas industry. The company, in its current state, was actually trademarked and launched in the 1970s and has grown significantly since then. Today, the company has over 14,000 employees. I think that number is actually almost close to 1,500 right now. 15,000 right now, with 27 production facilities globally that span over 16 countries. I wanted to share with you a little bit about the company's recognition. Most recently, the company was named by Fortune magazine as the world's most admired, oil and gas equipment services company in 2012. You can add that to the impressive list of information that's shown here. They also received the same award in 2005, 2006, 2008, and 2010. They were named in the 4 of the top 5 offshore projects of 2010, and they were also named by Forbes magazine in 2011 one of the world's most innovative companies. FMC Technologies obviously has a very extensive global presence, but you can see that their major manufacturing operations, which are outlined here with the red dots, there are not that many left in the U.S. anymore, although there is one here in Oklahoma City, so we're very proud of the fact that we do have a large manufacturing operation here already. The company is broken down into three basic business segments. There's subsea technologies, surface technologies, and energy infrastructure. The division that we're talking about here is the surface technologies, the surface wellhead division. The company already has, as I mentioned, a large presence here in Oklahoma City with the surface wellhead division. They are the leading supplier of drilling, completion, and production systems for onshore and offshore applications. The current facility has about 50 full-time, well-paying positions, very similar to the positions that are being proposed as being created here. Let's talk a little bit about the project itself. The company is considering a relocation of existing operation that currently sits outside of the state of Oklahoma. They were considering a number of locations, although the final two considerations were both in Oklahoma and in Texas. The company expects to create about 73 new jobs over a 5-year period. Most of that will be front-end loaded, so they're going to try to ramp up as quickly as they possibly can, try and get maybe about 30 or so within the first 3 months, and then ramp up pretty steadily from there. The average wages are very strong, about 41 and a half, a little more than 41,500 average annual wage per year, which translates to a payroll at the facility. This is not combined payroll. This is just of new jobs of a little over $3 million annually. Investment numbers, which includes capital and expense items, totals just under $3 million. This is a fairly a quick number that they'll get to. This doesn't include, the reoccurring spend that will go on, and also doesn't include spending that will happen at the existing facility as well. So that'll include things like $400,000 worth of leasehold improvements to an existing building here that is vacant or near vacant now, and then another $963,000 in new manufacturing equipment, $519,000 in basic startup costs, and a little over $1 million over a 5-year period in lease expenses for that new space. FMC Technologies is very thankful for the opportunity that we have here, that the Trust Board is considering this incentive for their company. The project has continued to remain competitive between Texas and Oklahoma. And obviously, any support that we receive here not only helps us justify the business case, but also shows us the commitment from the city level to support the business in any way that they possibly can, and be a good environment for the company to continue to grow in. On the flip side of that, FMC understands that they do have a commitment in this as well, and they do commit to putting those jobs, or hiring those people that we had mentioned, the 73 people, and to continue to really be a good corporate citizen, so continue to do the things that they're currently doing in the community and expand that effort out, which includes things like various charitable organizations, including the United Way, sponsoring Little League teams and things like that, and whatever other kind of charitable things that they can do inside the community. And we appreciate your consideration and support, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions that might have.
Are these machines?
Right, exactly. So the majority of people would be, we would call them assemblers. Right, exactly. There would be a number of people that would be associated with the manufacturing operation and assembly operations at the facility. Well, I think, the market, we'll see how the market bears. I mean, the company has got some existing history, because they do have an operation here already, so they have a pretty good idea as to what the market should bear for the types of people that they're looking for, although, the landscape is changing. Obviously, there are, quite a bit of companies that are involved in the oil and gas industry that are ramping up their facilities as well, and so as that market continues to tighten, the company is a large company. They'll remain committed to doing what they have to do to bring the talent on that they need. But that's a first-year wage as well, and so as people continue to get trained, there might be opportunities for growth.
Thank you.
What's the location in Texas?
The location in Texas has not been disclosed yet for the that's under consideration, or the location of the facility that is potentially looking to?
Thought I would try.
Yeah, no, there's a couple of cities that we were looking at. There's a location that's in Texas right now, and then there's another possibility that sits out there. So,
Would you say that's the Eagle Ford or the Permian, or are you in and around the oil and gas area, or are you in a metro area?
safe to say that it's, if to have this type of operation, you probably need to be around a large concentration of people where we can find the skill sets that we need.
Would it be helpful to point out that the Oklahoma team beat 2 Texas teams to get to play tonight?
I think it would. I think, we factor those sorts of things in our analysis for sure.
Larry, I'm sorry.
Your location, you have 2 locations, I think, here in Oklahoma City right now.
Correct.
What are those 2, if you just...
The 2 addresses?
Yeah.
That I'll have to look up unless you know, John.
Is on Highway 40, Interstate 40, and our facility that I run is on 29th Street.
Southwest or southeast? Southwest. I just thought total disclosure would be needed here. That's in Ward 3, that's why I'm in favor of it. And so, and I'm also in favor of it because this is one of those classic ones. These guys are making things, and they're creating wealth, and that's what the gold bond system was all intended for. So this is a classic, in my opinion, example of why we passed the gold bond initiative. So I hope you do come to Oklahoma City, sir.
And thank you for your consideration.
Any other questions? Yeah, Wanda.
Brian, do you know what market share percentage FMC has in surface technologies?
We would like to think it's pretty big. That's kind of a strange number to try to
Quantify?
in the city because they move around rigs so much. I will tell you that we're the number 2 in the business behind Canada.
Okay.
Yeah, it's safe to say they're a very significant player.
Okay. Well, in terms of your distribution to national footprint, Oklahoma City is in a prime position in terms of your transportation costs, so much greater than Houston. Thank you very much.
Or another Texas.
Well, we do appreciate you considering Oklahoma City, and I think I can speak for all the Oklahoma City staff that we'll do whatever we can do to accommodate your move down here, if indeed it works out that way. We really hope so. And we appreciate being considered, and we stand ready to do what we promised to do here, plus anything we can do in terms of the permitting stage, construction stage, we'd be glad to help with that.
Yeah, and we do appreciate that, and we also appreciate all the support that we receive from the Oklahoma City Chamber, not only to help us, sort through this process, but also their continued support, as they look on the human side of things and look at the people that will be involved in potential relocations and things like that. So we do appreciate all that support.
Any other questions? Brian, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We look forward to your decision if it's the right one. So, thank you.
I'll move approval of the resolution as submitted.
Okay, we have a motion made and seconded to approve the resolution that was submitted to the trustees. Are any questions or comments? Please cast your votes, and the resolution is approved. Thank you very much. The next item on our agenda is something near and dear to our hearts, the Project 180 Progress Report. Mike, you going to make that for us?
Thank you for allowing me to be here with you today. Brent asked for a quick construction update, and I've included some pictures that I'd like to walk you through. The first photograph is taken from Streetscape Package 4, which is the work largely around the New Devon facility on Hudson, Sheridan, and Robinson. This is a look at the median on Robinson between Sheridan and Main. The design was influenced by Mark Bedford's donation of 2 large Hackett stones, one 27 feet in length and the other 24 feet. The quarry said it was virtually impossible to find such long stones intact, and the designers jumped at the opportunity to build the area around it. The next 2 photographs were taken just further south down Robinson at the Colcord Hotel. They show the first installation of what the design team has dubbed a destination marker. They're a "You Are Here" type of monument installed at various locations around downtown. It features a map of downtown in the middle, and then an interesting story about the area that you're in around the outer edge. And in the materials that Randy just gave you, I included a copy of the text that was developed for the 48 destination markers. And I'd also like to acknowledge the contributions of many in this project, but particularly Kathy Wright, who was a longtime City of Oklahoma City employee, who unfortunately passed away before she was able to see this project come to fruition, and then also Dr. Bob Blackburn. And again, this is just another look at the destination marker installation. The final Streetscape Package 4 photograph shows the lay-by at the library book drop off of Hudson. On Streetscape Package 4, at this point, all curb and gutter and drive lane paving have been installed, and the contractor is currently working on sidewalk in multiple locations. The next photograph is taken from Streetscape Package 5, which is the work primarily around City Hall and the Civic Center. The contractor is working around OG&E in various spots, but he is moving forward with paving on Walker and Colcord and sidewalk on Walker and Couch. This photograph is taken from Streetscape Package 3, which is the work primarily around Walker and Main. The only work remaining on Package 3 is the median and the south sidewalk on Main between Walker and Hudson, and we anticipate full completion on June 22nd. The next couple of photographs show work in Bicentennial Park. The first depicts the infrastructure that's installed to support the landscaping behind the seat wall. And then the next photograph shows the process of backfilling behind those seat walls. The primary progress to date has been the installation and backfilling of 8 seat walls, the installation of the primary drainage system, and the installation of the fountain infrastructure. And then the next group of photographs, this is not Project 180 work per se, but for many people it's their first opportunity to see kind of the south edge of the Devon campus. For the last 2.5 years or so, there has been a fence up along the north edge of Sheridan, and folks just haven't been able to see in and see what has been created there. This first photograph shows what the design team calls the Devon Arrival Plaza. You see a very extensive water feature and then the Devon sign that leads to the rotunda. The next photograph is of an outdoor courtyard area. This area is called the Devon Green. It supports the restaurant inside. And then as you can see in the next photograph, there's a nice green space there that kind of frames the east end of the auditorium. This photograph shows you the streetscape that was created along that north edge of Sheridan. It runs from about the Devon Tower back west to Hudson. It's a series of street trees, a security bollard system, fountains. It's really very pretty. And then finally, a view into the site from Hudson, just on the north edge of the auditorium looking back in. And then, as always, I've included the map of the Project 180 projects. This was the map that the Trust reviewed back in December and approved, and what staff has been working from. And with that, I would certainly try to answer any questions that you might have.
Are there any questions from the trustees? Well, I have a question I want to ask publicly because I think it illustrates one of the real benefits we've gotten from Project 180. I was talking to a person who represents the ownership of a building where the Project 180 is doing one side of the building. And they're interested in taking the same theme and doing the rest of the sides of their building. Who should they talk to?
I think if they would communicate through the city engineer's office, I think that would be great.
It's an example of Project 180 causing some private investment to bring the streets up to the same advanced condition that we have now. I think it's a real good sign and a real positive effect for Project 180. Thank you very much for your efforts.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, just a question. Thank you for the update, as always. Any thoughts as to where we're at in terms of timelines and any delays that you should share with us?
I think at this point, Streetscape Package 3, again, that Walker Main area will finish up this month, and we'll move immediately towards final acceptance. Streetscape Package 4, we anticipate finishing in August and moving immediately to final acceptance. And then Streetscape Package 5 will be December of this year and move to final acceptance.
Okay. And those are on time from your understanding?
I think those are all current updates. You know, as the project ebb and flows, sometimes you have to add time, but I think all that is current as of today.
Thank you.
Yeah, Rhonda?
Mike, I think these You Are Here markers are awesome. That's a great idea. Y'all might want to give some consideration as to how you can use this in a marketing standpoint in terms of people capturing their images on their phones, and if they can do some kind of a game and remember things, or if they go to all these locations. There's scavenger hunt opportunities. There's all sorts of things that could encourage people to go discover every single marker.
I think there are a lot of folks who have known about them that have really kind of anticipated the moment that they would actually start to be installed. So our team has been really excited about it.
Other questions? Mike, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Excuse me, moves on to item C, amendment number 2 to contract for landscape architectural services, project MP0419, project 180, Bicentennial Park and City Hall lawn, landscape renovation, and civic park design with a sculpture garden. Kathy, you want to say anything about this?
Mike can help me out if I get something wrong, but I believe this is really a reallocation of some of the design fees that are within the contract. When we decided not to do the City Hall lawn, there was extra project management and design fees that were associated with that we need to move to the Bicentennial Park project now to help with some design services that were done to relocate some of the monuments and plaques and things that were in the park. Pretty close.
Any questions or comments? It's a relatively small number compared to some of the ones we've had to deal with. Okay, Chair will entertain a motion to approve amendment number 2.
So moved.
A motion made and
Second?
second. I really like this group over here. Thank you for paying attention. We have a motion made and second. Are there any further questions or comments? All those in favor, please cast your votes. And the item passes. Thank you. Item D is another change order. This is for the East Center East Garage, pedestrian corridor. This may take a little bit of explanation because it's a little unusual, but I think, Mike, you want to say something about this one?
When the garage was sold, the city maintained an easement on the third floor of the garage with the intention of creating a connector from the New Devon facility into Oklahoma Tower. It was one of the projects that was outlined in the Devon implementation agreement. And this project installs that corridor. Basically, it puts up a wall, finishes the resulting space out, and then conditions that space. The change order is about $25,000. The largest of the items was a waterproofing coating system that actually goes on the ceiling above. The reason that becomes important, if you're on the third floor of the garage, the ceiling above is the fourth floor of the garage. You know, one of the good problems that we talk about Oklahoma City having, our garages are just at capacity, and the management for the garage needed to be able to have vehicular circulation on that fourth floor as soon as possible. So we moved to an alternate waterproofing system that dried quicker to allow cars to travel on the floor above sooner. Beyond that, there was some door-rated hardware that we picked up. There was a relocation of some condensate lines to achieve a better overhead clearance for vehicles. And then finally, we made an alteration at the Devon end to better match up with the door that they had already purchased to go in on their end of the project.
Any questions? It's sort of the interior passageway in the garage that we're building here, and to have an easement for it, and this is the construction of it. Larry, do you have a question?
No, I was just asking Larry to second my motion since you called us out for not paying attention.
Oh, I just...
Now I'm about to count out of the bag.
Okay. Well, that's okay. Well, now I'll ask for it now. Do we have a motion to approve the change order?
Call for motion to approve.
Thank you. Have a motion made and seconded. Thank you. Any further discussion? To elect the new chairman. Please cast your votes, and the change order is approved. Item E is another change order having to do with the Bicentennial Park Hall landscape renovation and civic park design, bringing $13,000. Anybody want to make a comment about this particular change order?
This is our first change order on this project. As Mr. Ryan said, it's about $13,000. We had a couple of items that the existing field conditions didn't match what our plans had communicated to the contractor. We had a couple of instances that we needed to upgrade what the plans called for code reasons. In the DDRC process, we split the elevation of the fountain and the stage. There was some cost associated with that modification. And then finally, when the health department reviewed the fountain, they asked to have us go to a grading system that had little smaller openings that could potentially, not catch someone's finger if they were messing around with it. So collectively, I think the largest was the grading, but they all add up to about $13,000.
Are there any questions or comments? Chairman, would you entertain a motion to approve change order number 1?
Second.
Okay, made and seconded. Very good. You guys are quick up the space. That's good. They're quick learners. Please cast your votes, and that change order is approved. Next is an amendment and change order to Project 180. Mike, this is yours.
And again, this is Streetscape Package 3, primarily around the Main and Walker area. As you look at the contract and as you look at the amendments and the change order, the things I'd like to draw your attention to, there was an increase in the quantity of concrete. The project obviously stopped somewhere north of Park on Hudson. We extended that project limit a little further north towards Kerr just to reach a better tie-in point. That obviously required some additional concrete to do that. You'll also notice that we deducted some pull boxes and some wiring. As we then turn and look at the change order, you see where we added back in a larger pull box and a larger wire there. There is a little bit of a cost increase, but the two largely offset each other. And then finally, the other change order item that's large, there were utility tie-ins that were originally included in the Bicentennial Park project. Because the speed that Streetscape Package 5 was achieving, it was a little bit ahead of the park. So we went ahead and we moved that effort into the Streetscape project, and then subsequently the trust will see a decrease in the Bicentennial Park project.
Are there any questions? Larry, do you have a question?
Yeah, just to help me get my frame of reference going here. The Bicentennial Park, we're trying to get done by the 1st of October in order to coincide with the 75th anniversary.
Yes, sir. We understand the celebration will be September 27th.
Okay. But yet, the streetscape around there looks like you're now calling for December completion.
What we currently anticipate, Mr. McAtee, is all the street paving will be in, all the curb and gutter will be in, all the sidewalk and amenity zone on the park side will be in. We're going to be rushing, trying to get as much of the opposite side of the street in as we can, but that is not certain at this time. So there's just work that will be left in Streetscape Package 5 that won't be complete on the 27th.
So the folks that are coming down for that particular function on the 27th, I think, will they notice that the thing is not totally complete, or will it be kind of not seen to the average eye?
It's probably going to be like the Festival of the Arts was, not this year, but last year. If you remember, we didn't have the west side of Hudson finished. Wherever we're at that point, we'll try to camouflage that as best we can, obviously make it safe, and then communicate to the public what they can expect. But I certainly can't tell you today that we're going to be finished on that opposite side of the street.
Most of the people who come will be looking for the big trees that used to be there. So. Okay, we have any other questions or comments on this particular amendment and change order?
So moved.
Motion made and second. Further discussion? Cast your votes. And item F is approved. Item G is a little change of pace. This is an audit contract with BKD. They have been the city auditors, I guess, the last 2 years, and it's been the practice in the city for the individual trust to use the same auditor as the city does, and this is just continuing that practice. This would be an audit of just essentially the trust operations. Any questions? Yeah, Frank.
Is the fee negotiated? How do they generate the fee?
Negotiate fee?
There was a flat fee up front, but this is a 2% increase over last year. Last year our fee was around $17,800, so it went up $300 and some dollars. So that is built within their contract with the city.
So they have a 3-year, 5-year?
It's a 5-year contract. Yes, sir.
It's been practice of the city to change auditors about every 5 years just to make sure that we get independence in there. Any questions or comments? I guess we need a motion to approve the contract.
So moved.
A motion made and second. Further discussion? Questions? Cast your votes, and the contract is approved. Item H is a report on vacation people took to Las Vegas. I'm sorry.
That wasn't much of a vacation.
This is a departure from the motto, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. We're going to get, I think, a partial report today.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to briefly share mostly visuals with you about what we did at ICSC. The show was larger this year. There were about 35,000 attendees, so I think that points to the health of that market starting to come back, and we had a very, very busy show while we were there. We did make some physical changes to our presentation this year, and that's why I wanted to bring these photos with us. This is from the back side of the booth, but I think this is a good picture of our new 10 by 20 conference room. This conference room is kind of the place where all the meetings happen at this show. We had 15 meetings with either retailers, brokers, or developers, and then also brought home about 35 new good leads. Those were half and half developers and retailers. I think 11 of those retailers are new to the market or would be new to the market, so we're continuing to follow up both on those meetings and the leads. And then I just want to flip through and show you if I'm smart enough to push the right button. Thank you. This is more from the front of the booth. These last two are taken still during setup, so the lighting isn't quite as good, but they give you a little bit better of an angle. There's still some shipping equipment around on the floor. But this gives you an idea of how we're presenting the city. It's very visual, lots of good high-quality color photographs that are very recent, so you can see what's happening in Oklahoma City. Does anybody have any questions about the ICSC portion? I'm going to throw a little bonus report in while I'm here. With the NBA finals in town, we're trying to do some push on the Oklahoma City Renaissance story in connection with the finals. And this last week, we developed a couple of tools, one that you just received, which is an Oklahoma City media guide. This is being given to the national media as they come in and receive their credentials in the NBA's media credentialing space. Oh, I missed two things. Hang on, we'll go back to that in a second. Then we also created the OklahomaCityOKCNewsroom.com, and this is a very robust microsite that is specifically designed to give the national media the tools they need while they're here. So it's downloadable photography, HD video, storylines that they could cover while they're here. Well, right now, they're just arriving in town, and it's all about basketball. The longer the finals go on, the more they might be looking for additional stories to cover, particularly the international media that's here from around the world. So we're actively working to try and push that story. Going backwards and talking about ICSC, I think the NBA story is most impactful when we're talking to that retail audience, because the NBA essentially is something of a retail product. So that image development that we've been able to do with retailers and with developers has really been impacted by our presence in the NBA. These are examples of some of the materials that we take with us to the show. And then one other thing that we developed specific for the meetings at this show was a GIS-based application that we worked with an intern out of OU. That this is an example of one of the reports that we could create based on an individual location in the market to show drive time, to show demographics, to show market access. And it was really valuable in the meetings to be able to pull up specific geography, look at images and maps and aerials, but then also relate that to the data that they would need to make a decision and run specialized reports to send back to that client. So that's just an example of some of the ways that we're operating in that environment. So it's not all fun, Chairman Ryan. Work is fun, but yes, it's a lot of work too.
Just a word of thanks for your initiative. I think this is excellent. I think there's going to be a lot of interest and an incredible opportunity to tell our story from so many different angles, so thank you for doing it.
Absolutely.
And I think I've heard anyway that the Oklahoma City reception was a lot different this year than it has been in past year. Instead of having chased down leads, we had them coming to us. So I think that's a real compliment to the work everybody's done to bring attention to Oklahoma City in such a positive way.
We're still doing both. We're still chasing too.
Very good. Well, we don't want to give up that part. Okay, thank you very much for your presentation. Next is another presentation, I think. Alliance for Economic Development, professional services for fiscal year 13.
Now, I have a brief presentation this morning that outlines the budget and some of the major changes in the contract that will be presented to the trust between the city, the Economic Development Trust, and the Alliance for Economic Development. Brent and Wiley and I are still finalizing the contract and the scope of services, and that'll be presented to you in a couple of weeks. But I wanted to take this opportunity to kind of go through the budget and some of the changes and make sure you understand what will be presented to you at your next meeting. Essentially, the services of the Alliance are proposed to remain the same for the coming year. Some of the things that were included as additional services in the current year have been rolled into the base contract. So that's one of the changes that I'll be talking about. But basically what we do is we help the city manage various incentive programs like the Gold Bond program, the TIF districts. We provide management and oversight to programs like the Urban Renewal Authority, the Oklahoma Industries Authority, and the Industrial and Cultural Facilities Trust. We also work on studies like the Employment Land Study that was presented to Council today and that you've all heard about in the past, and other studies like the retail strategy that the Planning Department's also working on as a part of the update to the city's comprehensive plan. The first slide shows you what our budget is this year and what we propose for next year. As you can see, there's a slight increase in the base contract and then another increase in the MAPS 3 portion of our contract. Now, the MAPS 3 portion of the Alliance's contract is paid for from the MAPS 3 use tax, not the sales tax. And then finally, the additional services line remains the same at $100,000. Go to the next slide. So the major changes include the changes to the MAPS 3 activities. In next year's budget, we plan to fund a study that's called Leveraging Private Investment from the MAPS 3 projects. We've been in the process of selecting a consulting firm over the past couple of months. We've finished that process, and we're working out the contract details. The amount that is designated from MAPS 3 use tax funding is to fund that study, and that study only. So some of the MAPS 3 support functions that have been done by the Alliance will be paid for through just our basic support that we receive from other organizations, through the Urban Renewal Authority, for example. Again, this is funded by the MAPS 3 use tax. There is a slight increase in the funding for our base contract from TIF and GOLT. This reflects absorbing some activities that were identified as additional services in the current year as moving into our base contract. An example of that would be taking on the responsibility to administer the Oklahoma City Port Authority in the Foreign Trade Zone, and just some other activities that were a part of the transition to the new organization. One thing that I wanted to say about the additional services amount that's included in the contract is that in the next year, the $100,000 is available for any other studies or plans that the trust or the city council would like to see the Alliance help with. For example, as the city completes its retail strategy that's a part of the comp plan, certain areas may be identified that are in need of additional study or more specific recommendations and strategies. We could use this $100,000 to complete those kinds of studies. So that money is available to use as you and the city council wish in the coming year. Go to the next slide now. So again, some of the changes include management of the city's Port Authority. We worked to clarify the role for the retail strategy. I think a couple of trust meetings ago, we had a presentation about the study that was done on retail roles and responsibilities. So the new contract will reflect those changes. And we've added performance measures. I know it's an important part of the city's management structure to include measures of performance and result measures. And so we're working to incorporate those into the Alliance's contract. And if you remember last year, we weren't able to do those quite yet. So some examples of those performance measures include, like for the Gold Bond Program, % above the Oklahoma City MSA, average wage for all new jobs created, or the number of jobs created through incentives, and our target is 1,500 jobs. Now these measures are similar to the ones that are in the Chamber's contract and to the city's budget, and we all want to make sure we're measuring the same things and that we're all working towards the same goals. Retail incentives, an example of a measure might be additional square feet of retail space built and occupied downtown at 20,000 square feet in the coming year. Retail includes restaurants, so we have a little bit of a gift there when it comes to downtown retail. Go to the next page. Some other ones that you probably wouldn't see in the other in the Chamber's contract or in the city's budget would include our role in helping with downtown parking. We'll be working to facilitate the development of new parking spaces in downtown, and our target is 2,000 spaces in the next 5 years. And then leveraging MAPS 3 to encourage private development and redevelopment, facilitate private investment in the Court Shore area and adjacent to the MAPS 3 projects by completing phase 1 of the study that will be underway shortly, and then facilitate the development of a new convention center hotel. And our target is to issue the RFP for a transaction advisor and to initiate the study for the convention center hotel. Another thing that's included in the contract between the city and the Alliance is language about creating efficiencies and developing a more effective organizational structure. Some of the things that we were able to do in the past year include holding one position vacant in the city manager's office. I was able to hire 2 additional people through the Alliance's budget to make up for that reduction in one person, but within our resources that we've been allotted, we were able to add 2 additional staff people. We've also been able to reduce our overhead expenses by consolidating operations. Before, we had basically 3 different offices where all these different agencies were housed, and now we're in one space, close to City Hall, more visible, and I hope a better work environment for the employees that we have. And we've worked to improve communications and coordination between the agencies that the Alliance manages and bring them more into the mainstream of economic development and redevelopment activities in Oklahoma City. So with that, I will be glad to answer any questions.
Are there questions?
Just one question. In comparing the budgets, about a 20% increase, I guess, over current fiscal year. Do you anticipate that that will be sufficient for you to meet all of those objectives you just described, or do you anticipate growth is moving going forward?
We've tried to set our targets realistically on what we think we can accomplish in the coming year, and I'm pretty optimistic. So I think it'll be sufficient.
Questions? Kathy, I have a question or 2. On the base contract, it shows it's funded by TIF and Gold. What is the approximate proportions?
Oh, you're going to have to ask Brent that one. I can't remember off the top of my head. I see it every month.
Just like approximately.
The gold funds would fund approximately $163,000, approximately $64,000 of that $180,000 base, and the other would be broken out between TIFs 2, TIF 8, and TIF 4.
And the second question, Kathy, on the downtown parking garages, are you looking for public-private partnerships as well as just the city doing it?
Oh, yes, definitely.
Okay. Any additional questions? Kathy, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
Next item on our agenda is a proposed budget for the trust, and Brent's going to present on that.
Yes, sir. Today I wanted to go over to the fiscal year 12-13 proposed budget for the Oklahoma City Economic Development Trust. Today we'll go over the proposed, and then our next meeting on the 26th, we'll plan on approving the budget at that time. Today, the proposed budget is $182.1 million, with approximately $149 million of that coming from our TIF programs, which include TIF District number 2, which is the downtown TIF District number 4, which is the Dell or the Oklahoma River TIF District, and TIF number 8, which is the Devon World Headquarters TIF. Also includes $30 million from our Strategic Investment Program, which is funded by the General Obligation Limited Tax Bonds, and there's an additional $2.5 million in our General Economic Development Fund, which is really our pass-through fund where the general fund transfers funds to us, and then we enter into long-term agreements, we enter into long-term agreements, for example, with the Outlet Mall, and then we enter into shorter-term agreements with the Alliance for Economic Development and the Chamber of Commerce. We do not anticipate any gold bond issues in this upcoming year, so we're not receiving any more of that $75 million. It also includes funding for the Economic Development Foundation, which is the Chamber, the Alliance, and the Outlet Mall reimbursement. TIF District number 2 and 3 totals $19.8 million. It includes roughly $5.5 million for projects this year. At our last meeting, you approved a contract with Urban Renewal Authority to acquire property in the Quarter Shore area of $2.3 million. We have that budgeted for next year, and then there's an additional $3 million for the I-89 downtown school and the administrative building, which was recently approved by the City Council. And also about $3.7 million in debt service on our outstanding debt for TIF District Number 2 and 3. We anticipate receiving a little over $5.5 million. I talked to the county yesterday, and our checks for this fiscal year are in the mail. So we should be getting those in the next day or two. It also includes $340,000 from the Skirvin. That has been very strong, the sales tax that we generate from that, and then the state will match that for us. We do not anticipate borrowing any new funds in this next fiscal year. TIF District Number 4 and 5, which back in April, that TIF District was moved or assigned to the Economic Development Trust from the Oklahoma City Public Property Authority, has a budget of $2.6 million. It includes the Meridian Landing project, which is currently, the OCPPA has a architect that's designing that right now, and in the near term, that contract will be assigned over here, and then you'll be getting the plans and specs for that project. It includes an additional $1 million in debt service payments, along with ad valorem and sales taxes derived from the jobs that are created out at Dell. Finally, TIF number 8. It's a big number for this year. It's $127 million, and I wanted, and the reason it is that is you're aware that probably 3 months ago this body approved a resolution designating Bank of America as the underwriter to do the long-term financing. We anticipate doing that financing in this fiscal year, this upcoming fiscal year. Right now, I've got that at around $120 million. That's to pay off $95 million plus the accrued interest, plus having a reserve fund and any accrued interest. We do not anticipate getting the first, or we actually anticipate getting the first tax payment about 2 years from now on the Devon Tower, because they'll assess it as of January 1 of 13. Tax bills will go out at the end of 13, so it'll be around June of 14 before we actually get the tax dollars. So between the time when we issue the debt until we can actually pay on it, there'll be accrued interest that we'll have to borrow, or capitalize interest that we'll have to have at that time. And this also anticipates around $250,000 in ad valorem taxes in the budget, along with the final numbers from the construction sales tax, along with the state match. The strategic investment program is at $30.1 million. We do not anticipate any new funding in this new fiscal year. We anticipate payments to AAA, Air Inc., Blue Cross Blue Shield, Chesapeake, United Engines, Advanced Academics, Boeing, Syntec, and Continental Resources. Those are the kind of ones that, when I look out on the horizon, we anticipate them requesting funds. And also that budget includes professional services with the Alliance and the Chamber of Commerce. From a general economic development section, it includes our quarterly payments to the Chamber, our Myriad Gardens Foundation, where that contract actually increased this year. If you'll recall, when their executive director made her presentation, this current year we're paying around $500,000 in our budget. This next year it'll be closer to $900,000, but it's actually, the difference is that cost was actually moved out of the city's parks budget to the trust as a pass-through, as they're going to actually be hiring the part-time people instead of paying it out of the city's general fund. So at the end of the day on that one, they are reducing their city subsidy this next year with the goal by 2015 to be at 33% subsidized by the city. And finally, the outlet shops, we budget a full fiscal year amount of $550,000 is within this budget. Again, all of these are funded through transfers from the general fund. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I do. Thank you, Brent. On the preceding slide, it says 12.5% of sales tax derived from the shops. Can you explain that?
Yes, sir. Our contract with the Outlet Mall Shops of America, we are reimbursing them for regional marketing expenses up to $550,000, but it's the lesser of $550,000 or 12.5% of sales. So what we do is we take the sales tax, 12.5% of the sales tax that is derived from those shops. And if that number is less than $550,000, that's all we'll reimburse them. So they have to generate at least $105 million worth of sales tax in a given year, roughly. They'd have sales of $105 million annually to get close to that $5.5 million.
Okay, so is that as defined 12.5% of the city portion of any sales tax?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
It's only the 2% general fund portion of the city's sales tax. We don't allocate the dedicated taxes. So.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? We'll get to approve this budget then at our next meeting.
Yes, sir.
You have a chance to look it over. If you got any questions, I'm sure they'll be glad to answer them for you between this meeting and the next meeting.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Robin, would you like to say something? We appreciate you being here.
I will be here at your next meeting, which is, I believe, the last week of June. But any questions that you have for us? Busy week for all of us. Thank you.
Well, Robin, just in case I miss next time, I want to thank you for all your hard work. We really appreciate it. We're going to miss you.
Thank you. I'm going to miss you guys, too. It's almost 8 years, if you can believe it. It's been an amazing 8 years. So a little bittersweet, but thank you all.
Well, good luck in whatever venture you...
I'll still be in Oklahoma City, stopping the rumors. I'm not going anywhere. Thanks.
Thank you now. Are there any comments from trustees? Comments from the staff? Comments from the public? Hearing none, we are adjourned. Thank you very much.